I believe we've discussed a lot so far, but in order to achieve all these things we just discussed, I'm sure in order to build generational wealth, we need some sort of a financial plan. So what do you think are the primary components of any successful financial plan and like a must-have? And what
Mhm.
are some level of flexibility or potential contingency one should plan for when considering putting together a financial plan in case of any eventuality?
Okay. So it's man, you're asking some great questions on behalf of your viewers and listeners. So the there are 6 areas of your finances. If you do well in these 6 areas, you build what we call an unbreakable financial house. It means no matter what happened in the world and economy, you can handle these things if your financial house is solid. So these 6 areas apply to everybody, right? You can be a billionaire, you can be just starting out. These 6 areas are common to everybody. So every financial plan should cover these 6 areas, should look at what you're doing in each one of these areas, and then how you can keep building and advancing. So I'll give you those 6 areas now. So first area is cash flow. That's the money flowing in and out of your household. You need to know how much is coming in, where's that money flowing to, and how you're handling it. Number 2 is debt management. So any financial plan you put together has to look at your cash flow and also debt management. Do you have any debt? How much are you spending on debt? Things like that. The third we call them the 6 building blocks to an unbreakable financial house. So the third building block is reserves. So if you have no reserves, emergency happens, slowdown happens, government lockdown, shutdown happens, dude, your finances become messed up. So you got to have reserves. So the fourth building block is proper protection. That's having the right kinds and right amounts of life insurance and health insurance and things like that, depending on the country you're in. I know in Liberia, the healthcare system is not the greatest. If you're in America or in some other Western country, somewhere like that, you've got health insurance you can get and also life insurance. Life insurance protects your entire financial house in case something happens to you, whether it's you pass away or you get critically sick or hurt. So that's cash flow, debt management, reserves, proper protection. Fifth building block is build wealth. This is where a lot of people have a lot of questions because there's different ways to build wealth. I could build wealth in my business. I could build wealth by investing in the stock market. I could be investing in all kinds of different things. I could build wealth by, buying real estate. I could build wealth so many different ways. So a person has to look at what are the ways I want to choose to build wealth, or that I enjoy, or that could be helpful to me. So that's the fifth building block, build wealth. And your sixth building block is build legacy. Build legacy that's where really generational. What's going to be my legacy? How am I going to build something and then pass it on the right way to my family so that they're not affected by it? So I give you an example how even people who are multi-billionaires still continue to improve on their plane. So Warren Buffett is the fourth, fifth richest man in the world, maybe the third richest man in the world, worth like 80-something $billion. So Warren Buffett expected, he was like, hey, I thought my wife would pass away. I thought I would pass away before my wife. So he just expected everything would kind of go to her and then she would make some decisions on how to handle the wealth. Well, it turns out his wife passed away before he did. So then he started what his legacy would be. Even though the guy was a multi-billionaire, that's step 6, that 6 building block of build legacy. He was still thinking about how exactly he was going to do that, right? So one of the things he did is he gave his kids some money. I think he gave them like $1 billion each. So people say Warren Buffett is leaving the majority of his wealth to charity. It's true, but he actually gave his kids each like $1 billion. Okay, so he didn't like physically give it to. He gave it to them through some organizations for them to use for charitable causes and to get. What's that?
I said he needs to adopt me.
Yeah, there you go. All of us want to be Warren Buffett's kids. So, so what he did was he did that, and then he pledged the rest of his money that when he dies will go to charity. So he kind of gives his kids, and when I say kids, Warren Buffett, I think, is in his 80s now. So his kids are not like young kids. They're in their, I think some of his kids are in the 60s. So they're not like super young. They're not like super young people. So he's like figured, okay, 50s or 60s or 40s, I'll give them, and they can start to use that to do good works. So a lot of them, some of his kids, that's what they're doing. They're doing a lot of charitable works, but that's because his wealth has allowed him to do that. And then he decided he would give a lot of it to charity, right? So even Warren Buffett still wasn't perfect in all of these 6 areas. He was still improving on things. He still will be improving on things. He still is building wealth. He's still doing more and more stuff. So at the end of the day, those 6 areas that apply to all of us is what every financial plan should address. Now, you can do some pieces of it. Sometimes people are just like, okay, I want to do this piece or that piece. But understand that to have a complete financial plan, you get reserves, proper protection, you plan for building wealth, and then plan for building your legacy. And so those are the components of a solid financial plan. And then there's different levels of it. Here, there's only so much they can do in those 6 areas. Somebody who makes $250,000 a year, they can do a little bit more stuff in those areas, right? They can do different types of things. Somebody who makes $1 million a year, there's more things that person can do. Other stuff opens up to them in terms of building wealth. They can get access to private deals and lots of other stuff. So, there's those 6 areas are common to all of us, but there's different levels to it. So the most important thing is that you have somebody who's helping you with those areas, okay? Helping you on cash flow and maybe how to increase your cash flow, helping you understand how to put money into reserves, helping you understand the right kinds or right amounts of life insurance and health insurance to have. And then your game plan for building wealth, all of that fits into your overall financial plan.
Someone said the internet is giving problem. Why you can't hear us or something?
Yeah, it might be, it could be on your side, Eva, because it's a little blurry. Your side is a little blurry to me.
Okay. Okay.
Maybe it'll adjust here.
If I should increase the mic. Is it okay now, Martin?
Yeah, I can hear you a little bit. It's just a little bit in and out and hearing you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. So now that we've covered generational wealth and financial planning, do you think that people should approach building wealth from a cooperation standpoint? Like, I remember one of my mentors once told me that, Princess, you need to treat your life like a cooperation. She told me I needed to have board members, stakeholders, shareholders, mission statement, vision statement, financial statement, and my goals. So do you think for a family who wants to build generational wealth, should they handle it as a cooperation and follow those basic steps and policies where they have mission statement, goals, knowing where they want to be in the next generation or 4 generations down the line? Do you think it's beneficial for family to practice such form of organized system?
Okay, I heard most of the question and just the end part I didn't hear.
Okay, for the end, where did you stop?
Just I heard about the board members, the plans, they're having the financial statements. I heard all of that. I think it was just like the last sentence I didn't hear.
Okay, so I'm asking now, do you think it's right for families who are trying to build generational wealth to practice such form of organized system as the corporate entities do?
I think it's good, but I think it's there's levels to it. Like if a person's just getting started, it's harder for them to put all those pieces together. Like the other day, somebody asked me to mentor them, and he said to me, he said because I don't know anybody who in my world who is financially successful. So, and that's where it goes back to not having the right information. So say, for example, this person wants to go put together a board of directors or somebody who would consider their board of directors to help advise them. And they go to their broke uncle. Well, that's not going to work out too well because the broke uncle is going to maybe give them broke advice. So and then they may not have access to people who might be financially successful to ask that too, right? So I think it starts with there's steps and levels to it. I think if a person, they should find one person that they know, like, and trust that can help advise them on some of their money and finances, right? They're like, okay, you're successful, or you help people with that. Because sometimes when finances already can be a complicated subject for people, even the basic stuff can already be a complicated subject for people. Depending on where you are, like that advice may have been appropriate for you based on where you are at when your mentor gave it to you. But in generally speaking, if you take a complicated subject and you make it more complex by saying you have to have these different pieces in place, that could cause a person. I think there's some point to reach where that is appropriate. But if they're just getting started, or if somebody's in the middle class, what I think they start to do first is try to find somebody they know, like, and trust who can help them understand the world of finances better. And then so that they can improve their own knowledge and their own thinking and responsibility on the subject, right? Because we work with a lot of rich clients. And a lot of these rich clients, really, really rich people, have multiple advisors. So then a lot of times it can make sense to somebody, oh, you should have multiple people advising you. Sometimes, though, you can run into a situation where you have too many voices giving too many opinions. One person says do this, this other person says do that. What that can do is, if a person does not haven't increased their own level of knowledge to where they can make a lot of those decisions on their own, they get confusion. You have this person saying do this, you have this other person saying do that. It can lead to confusion. Seen to where a lot of rich people go and get, and then they kick away some advisors and then keep one or two main people. I've seen that happen a lot. So that's my experience. I do think you should have people you bounce things off of. I think you should have a main person that you talk to. And I think you do have to look at your life, your finances, look at it like a business. Those 6 areas that I talked about, they apply to a business, they apply to a household. So every business has to look at its cash flow. Every business has to look at how much debt they have. Look at how much cash reserves they have. Every business has to look at how are they going to continue to build wealth and build value. How are they going to protect their assets? All of those, whether it's an individual or a business, those 6 areas apply. So it's not something I think of as far as like getting all these people lined up. It's good practice if they can get people lined up who have the same core beliefs that they do. Otherwise, you have confusion. You have one voice over here that says this, another voice over here that says that, and it can lead to confusion. And when a person is confused, they don't take action. Have you ever seen a confused person? They don't do anything. They just stand there. That's what happens to people. They don't take action or make decisions about money when have sometimes too many voices that contradict each other, right? So as far as like having those kinds of things written down, absolutely. We do that in our life. We do that in our business.
Now, I
What's
said
that?
that's what I wanted to hit on just now, like vision, mission statement. Are they important when you're trying to build generational wealth?
Oh yeah, they're absolutely important for building generational wealth. For I think building anything, just operating in life. So in our business, we have a tool we use that talks about the purpose, the goal, the policies that we'll use. Not just saying, oh, here's my vision, here's my purpose, but actually, what are the policies I'm going to do to track? So, for example, if somebody's goal is to build, all they do is spend their time watching TV. It's just a thing on a piece of it. So you have to have a policy in place. How am I going to govern myself? How am I going to operate myself and my environment so that I can reach this goal? All of those things are policies. We do something even deeper than that. We keep statistics. We keep stats on how well we do something. So let's say, for example, my goal is to have a happy, successful, fruitful marriage that other people want to learn from, right? Let's say that's a goal I have for my marriage, right? So then, okay, what's the purpose is to be an example and to have a marriage that's stress-free. Okay, so what's my policy? How am I going to make sure that happens? Well, my policy would be, well, go to date night at least once a week with your wife. Make sure you have good communication with your wife. Make sure if you do something wrong, you apologize for it. All of those are policies that we follow, because if I don't communicate well to my wife, she tells me, and then I have to fix that. I have to handle it, right? So that's a policy. Going on date night where we can be just she and I, we go and do something interesting together, or go and do something together. That's a policy. Those are some of the things that you do to make sure you keep make the goal a reality. We also keep statistics. Okay, so for 2.5 months, we didn't go on date night. We started going back on date night recently. So our stats are every week since we've been able to go out on date night, we've been going out on date night. So our stats are going up as far as date night goes. So you see, by doing all of these things, it leads to the overall goal that we have of a happy, successful marriage, that we can be an example for others, and people see themselves in us and want to emulate, copy what we have. So all those things are vitally important.
I think people are complaining about my internet. Is it better now?
It's better now. I can see you now. It was blurry for like 5 minutes or 10 minutes there, but now it's cleared up. So
Okay.
you can ask them. You can ask them because I can't see their comments. I can only
Okay.
see you.
Yeah, they say it's better now. Okay.
Okay, good.
I'm in the basement. Maybe that's why the internet is so terrible. Okay.
Okay.
Now that we've touched on a lot, I would like you to speak on something very important, right? Which is will. I noticed like
Uh-huh.
people in Africa, we don't leave will. It's very hard. Like I think
Yeah.
only 5% probably leave a will. And at the end
Yeah.
of the day, you have the kids fighting over these properties instead of like trying to grow from where their parents left them. They start
Hmm.
fighting each other, and then these properties just sit down, get damaged. They're in court for years. Sometimes it's spill over into the next generation, and they're losing money. So
Hmm.
can you talk about the importance of having a will, so we can cultivate that habit at a very early stage?
Yeah. It's super important when it comes to generational wealth. That's one of the first and easiest things that you can do. So a will is a legal, if somebody doesn't know, a will is a legal document where you can determine and you can say what your wishes are, where you want your properties to go, who you want your properties to go to, who you want your assets to go to, things like that. So I just think no one's ever talked to people about it. And there is, from what I've been in my personal experience, I believe there's a lot of African people don't want to talk about death or dying, don't want to think about it. So as a result, I think a lot of them don't plan for it.
Mhm.
So because if you plan for something, maybe they have some strange beliefs about it. So if you plan for something, you can handle it in advance, right? So having a will avoids a lot of problems because it tells you specifically, okay, I want these properties to go to these people, and that's it. That's who I want it to go to, and that's what I want to happen. There's no questioning. There's no fighting. It goes to the people you want it to go to, for the most part. It's probably a lot easier in Africa with a will. In America, somebody can challenge your will, for example. So then you have to leave another type of document called a trust that makes it hard. Nobody can challenge the trust. It just goes directly to the people you want to go to, and it's not public information. But in Africa, a will is probably a lot simpler to do, and you probably don't have a lot of problems with it. But a will is very, very important. You can't. It's one of your most basic parts of a financial plan. It's probably one of your earlier steps in generational wealth is writing down what your properties are and what assets you have and who you want it to go to. And it avoids a lot of fighting, lots of bad feelings, lots of stuff in the future that you don't want your kids to have if something happens to you. So everybody should at least have a will. It's very, very important as part of any financial plan.
Okay, thank you for that. So,
Mhm.
Liberians, we have to start leaving will and not let our kids fight over our property. So it's better to
Yeah,
build what was left instead of just leaving it. Because sometimes you see, like for years, you see some prime properties, and when you
yeah,
ask what the owners, they're like, these people are in courts. Why are you in courts when you can all come together? Let me give you guys an example about my family, right? From my mother's side, during the war, my grandfather's house got destroyed. One member of the family had more money. So he rebuilt the house. In short, he turned it into two apartments. So what the family did was, okay, since you invested money in it, take the second apartment and collect the rent until you recover your investment. So we have the property is back, to normal and life goes on. But if you just keep fighting and leave the properties there undeveloped, you're losing money. You could invest in that property and all of you can share the income from it. So I think people should
yeah,
start looking at it from that standpoint.
yeah,
So
exactly.
I know the last time you touched on savings and life insurance, but I'm sure we
Hmm.
have a couple of few people viewing today for the first time. So I would love for you to talk about the importance of having a saving culture, especially if you're trying to build generational wealth, and also the benefits of having life insurance.
So, the Asian cultures are very big savers. And also, Asian cultures buy a ton of life insurance. As I think Japan is like the highest percentage of life insured people in the world because these people think long term. They don't think about this weekend or next month. They start thinking about generations, right? And it's instilled in them. So they realize that when I'm not just living for myself or making money for myself, I'm making money for my family, my future generations. So they prioritize that. If that's important to a person, you have to prioritize it in your family, in your life. That's where it starts from, right? That's the area of control that a person has. I can control what I do in my family, and then from there I can be an example to others, right? So savings has to start from a person looking at and getting reality and getting understanding on the importance of doing it. Why is it important for me to save? Why is it important for me to have life insurance? Why are these things important? Because I don't want to make the same mistakes my parents did, or I want to leave my family in a much better position. Starts with you, right? Starts with you. That's how it starts. um, then you start to learn about different vehicles and different things. Like, for example, I said before that I can use my life insurance policy. Now, this is a step after you've got a savings account and you put some money into it and stuff like that. You got some reserves. We use life insurance and use life insurance as one of the tools we use to build wealth, not just for future generations, but for now. Because some of the life insurance policies I have, you build cash in the policy earns an interest rate, somewhere about 6 to 8% or so, earns an interest rate without any risk, doesn't take any market risk, so I don't lose any money. And if I want to go buy real estate or I want to invest in a business, I can actually I can take the money out of my life insurance policy, the cash, or I can borrow against it. Now, the thing about borrowing against your money when it's in a life insurance policy, depending on the type you have, is so let's say I have my money in my life insurance policy here. I've been putting money in savings, is growing for me, but I also have this real estate property I want to buy. If I take the money out of the policy and buy the real estate, I no longer have the cash in the policy earning interest for me. So I want the real estate and I want to also have the life insurance. So what I can do is I can borrow against my cash in this policy, take it and buy the real estate with it. So now I have the real estate paying me income and I still have the life insurance policy. I can do it in a way that the life insurance policy continues to earn interest, even though I've taken a loan against it. So now I have two assets. I had one asset before, I leveraged it to buy a second asset. Now I got two assets, right? Now, when I die, the life insurance is still there. The life insurance will pay to my family, pay a lump sum to my family, and I still have the real estate. So let's say I die, the life insurance goes away, pays my family a large lump sum of money, and my family still has this real estate over here. What my family can then do is the lump sum of money they get from my life insurance policy, they can buy another property. See, now they got more properties. They can buy more properties and buy more life insurance and buy more properties. So you see, the reason why properties are good is because you can rent them out to people. People always need a place to live. You can rent them out to people, and you can always get cash flow from it. You can always get rent income from it. And the reason why life insurance is important is because it gives you large lump sum of money when a person passes away that makes the family financially stronger. So in America, John F. Kennedy family. Anybody ever realize how this family never actually works? They never work. They work, but they don't work like a normal job. They have their own organizations and charities. The income earners pass away at a relatively young age. A lot of the people in the Kennedy family died young. How come this family doesn't run out of money? Well, one of the things is the family has a lot of life insurance. Every time a poor person passes away, the family gets poorer if they don't have life insurance. When a rich person passes away, the family gets richer because they have life insurance. Boom, lump sum of money comes into the family. The family's already rich. And the secret that people don't understand is they think, and I hear this often, they're like, well, I want to become so rich, I'll never buy life insurance. Do you know that the rich people have the most amount of life insurance? They're the ones they're already rich, yet they buy more life insurance because they understand how to get richer. You see, rich people don't limit how rich they are. They always want to get richer because they always want to exchange more. The poor person, though, they leave their family poorer. The poor guy dies, leaves his family with nothing, maybe leaves his family with debt and no income. He's gone, no income. How is the family going to continue to survive? The family struggles. The rich guy who's already rich leaves his family richer. So now the family can build on their already richness. So you see, it's a scale. The rich people get richer, the poor people get poorer and poorer and poorer. Then there's many different reasons why that happens. Savings, life insurance, using it for assets, all of those are big reasons why. The main reason, though, is financial literacy. The rich guy is generally more financially literate because he has more money. He's probably learn more about money to get more money. The poor person doesn't have a lot of money, so they don't spend time educating themselves about money. Like, dude, why would I learn about money? I don't have any. That's the thought. So the rich guy goes, of course I want to learn about money because I want more. Different viewpoint. So it's very important that when you're looking at those kinds of different things on like, okay, how do I make sure I'm saving and putting money aside? How do I make sure I'm using things like life insurance? And like the way I explained in my policies, you can leverage it to buy real estate. You can leverage it to do business. You can do lots of different things. So it's a very important tool, no matter what type of life insurance a person gets, very important tool to an overall financial plan.
Okay, thank you for that. So how do you balance your life? There are situations where the parents are just working so hard to make, to build this dream life, and they're not paying so much attention to their children. And sometimes the kids tend to resent their parents, and then when they die, they blow up the money because they felt like you are not part of my life. So how can you advise parents to balance both, like, pay attention to your kids at the same time while growing wealth?
Well, you gotta include your kids in things you're doing. So if you own a business, include your kid in the business. A couple of years ago, every day after school, our son would come to my office and hang out there, and we'll spend time, and he'll learn about the business. If I do a financial deal, I show him, hey, here's the financial deal I did, and here's how much money I made off of it. And so he knows if I do a deal, I say, hey, I made this much money today. So he understands what that means because it's not just about the money. It's about the experiences we have as a family. Hey, you want to go to Colombia for 2 weeks? I think it was 2 years ago. We went to Colombia. We planned to go to Colombia for 1 week. And then we spent an extra week there in Colombia. And so you want to spend 2 weeks in Colombia? You got to have some money. So, you incorporate them. If you want to, if the kids want to do things, they have to understand there's a certain level of work and production necessary. So if you include them in it and you have them help, like for example, we paid our son to shred some documents, right? So because of our industry, we shred lots of stuff anyway. So we paid him to shred things. He understands, well, okay, why do we shred things? We shred things for privacy reasons. We shred things to make sure, things are well protected, all of that. So he understands different aspects of our business. Now, if you have a job where you work for somebody else, so you go to work 9 in the morning and come home at 5 in the evening, then you can spend time with your kids, after that time. Or when you have to go to work, if you're in a position where you can bring your kids to work or have your kids understand what you do, how you provide for the family, all of that. If you incorporate them, they don't feel left out like they're being ignored. This is something I had to work a lot on because I stay up very, very late. I mean, I'll be up to 1, 2, 3 in the morning sometimes, right? So I don't get out of I run on 4 or 5 hours of sleep. It's not because I have to wake up early and go anywhere specifically, but it's just naturally I've always been like a short sleeper. And so this is something my wife and I always talked about and worked on is balancing the time. So she likes to run things off of a good schedule. Even when she's working from home, she'll do her task at certain times, and then like at 5 o'clock, we'll go for like a walk, or we'll go with our son for a walk. Sometimes he doesn't like to go for walks with us. So sometimes we go with one of us, so he might go with her. And so it's like stuff like that where you make pauses to be able to do things. And then we do a lot of family time, a lot of stuff on the weekend we do for family time. We do family activities. Um, One of the things we started doing recently, whatever, I don't know if people are fans of this or not, but we go to the gun range, right? We go and shoot firearms at the gun range. So we wanted to make sure he understood firearms safety. We live in Georgia. There's a lot of people in Georgia that have guns. I don't want him to come across a gun and not know how to safely handle it or what the rules are in safely handling it. Also, if he needed to defend our family one day, he could know how to do that. So we go to the gun range. So sometimes on the weekends, we go to the gun range and he gets to fire different guns and stuff like that. So we do different activities and different things. And so when you're doing stuff with your kids, you've got to figure out how to make that all work. My wife is way better with doing that and organizing things than I am. So she does a great job with helping keep me on track with some of those kinds of things. But it's very important to be able to do that with your kids. Incorporate them as much into your business or activities as you can, but also having times where you go and do stuff with them and stuff that they're interested in doing. Go and take them and do stuff they're interested in doing too, and that way you can spend some time with them.
Okay, so just another thing I want us to address. They have some families, right? They're doing so well, but they're not carrying their kids along. Like sometimes the person passed away and their families have no idea of what kind of businesses they were involved in, how much money. So then they feel like, okay, I'm not going to tell my kids how much money I got or how many businesses I own because I don't want them to feel entitled. So they tend to hide those kind of information from the kids. And then when they pass on, the kids have no ideas of their properties all over the country, the
Mm-hmm.
businesses they're involved in. And sometimes their partners are not that honest to come to the kids and say, okay, I was doing business with your dad. This is his share. I can give it to you or something. So they lose out on a lot because of that privacy the parents withheld from them. So how can you
Yeah.
encourage parents to try and involve the kids and let the kids know about their investment, the things they're doing? Because if
Mm-hmm.
tomorrow you pass on, at least your children will have an idea of how many properties you own, how many businesses you're involved with, who has money for you, or who has this for you, or. So how can you
Yeah.
advise those kind of parents?
Well, it's like what you talked about a little earlier, like the will. See, having a will, you can list all your assets in a will. The other thing a person can do is if they don't want to like disclose everything to their kids for whatever reason, then they can write it all down, have it in like some sort of journal, and have somebody know that, hey, if anything happens to me, this is where you go. This is where I have a list of all the businesses I have, properties I have, people who owe me, whatever it is. These are the lists in here. And then here's the proof that they owe me. Here's the proof that I have share in that business. Here's the proof that I have all this stuff. That way, partners don't be shady when if the person passed away and the kids don't know, not going to go approaching the kids and tell them, hey, your dad had share in this business or share in this thing. So writing it all down, make sure that, and keep it in a safe place so that your family can find it if you don't want to share with them. I like to be as transparent as possible, which is why I tell my kid, hey, here's how much I made on this deal. Here's how much you made on that. So that they can have a good understanding. I understand that some people don't like to do that. I have lots of clients who their parents don't like to do that. I have clients who don't want to tell their kids what they have. Sometimes that's the kind of a personal thing that a person has to get over. But the step, if a person can't just automatically don't feel comfortable doing that, the step they can take right now is just writing it all down and keeping it all in a safe place so that the family knows, so that when they pass away, because it's got to go to your kids and grandkids and your beneficiaries anyway. So if you do that and write it down, then now the people have it and now the people know.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much. I think today a lot of people don't have a lot of questions. So if guys
Okay.
you don't have questions for Martin, we're about to round up the show. So what would be your last advice to people who are trying to build generational wealth? What would you like to say to them just to round this discussion up?
I would say it's you have to approach it like your responsibility, right? You're doing something for your last name. A lot of times we do things for ourselves. We might do things for our kids to help our kids now, but I don't think people really realize the impact leaving your family in a stronger financial position makes for them. I will tie it to a lot of what you see happening in America right now with the protests, with a lot of minorities feeling like they're being in a tough position, and all of that. Look, let me tell you something. In America, the lowest earning income person is the black woman as a group. Lowest earning income group person is a black woman. Lowest earning income man is a black man. It's the black man. Black man in America's lowest earning income man. So what does that mean? It means a lot of black people, wherever they are, whether in America, in different places, they don't have a lot of economic power. Now, when other groups by far use life insurance and other tools and other assets to leave generational wealth, even if you start off on the same line with them, they go and leave this wealth to their family. They've now elevated their family to a much different position. They've moved their family. The family now is elevated to a whole new different neighborhood, a safer neighborhood where they're not harassed. Lots of different things happen that comes with that economically that people don't always see. They feel it, but they don't always see it. All right. So for instance, in my neighborhood, I live in the second highest income earning zip code in Georgia. There's only one other zip code that earns higher income than my zip code in Georgia, right? So the police people over here, very responsive, very friendly. Why? There's a lot of rich people here. So economically, if you live in my area, there's very little crime. The cops are very friendly. The cops will be helpful to you. The cops were very responsive about the whole thing going on. So economically, I have a little bit different access than somebody else who, if you're living in a certain type of neighborhood where the police already judging you because there's a lot of crime and harassing you or whatever it is. Now it still happens to me. It's happened to me a lot in different places. But what I'm saying is there's an economic impact to some of the social issues you're seeing happening because a lot of these people are not a lot of the people who are harassed and bad things happen to them and police take advantage of, and all these people are some of the people who don't have a lot of economic power. They're not in positions where they can challenge something. They're not in positions where if they get caught or somebody tries to a crooked officer tries to do something to them, that they can properly defend it in court. They don't have money, right? So a lot of times you see a lot of people go to jail, a lot of black men go to jail, a lot of people go to jail, even when they're not guilty, or they misrepresent themselves, or something happens where that should not have happened to them. A lot of it has to do with their economics. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that their parents, their grandparents, their great grandparents never left them something for which they could build on and get into a better financial position so that they can impact change on certain things. If you're concerned about paying your bills and feeding your kids, you're not concerned about whether it's systemic racism, injustices in the justice system, prison reform. You're not thinking about those things. You're thinking about, how am I going to feed my kids? So generational wealth is not just a buzzword. Oh, I just want to leave money to my family and all that kind of stuff. People can support causes if they're in a much better and stronger financial position, and it can start with you. So your responsibility as a person to your family, to your community, to your society is to do as much as you can to leave your family in a much, 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 much better position generationally. I did the math on this. There's a wealth gap between, I'm kind of going a little bit on a rant here, so just give me a couple of minutes and I'll wrap up.
Go ahead.
There's a wealth gap between whites and blacks. This is not about, it's not a rate, I'm not trying to be racial, nothing like that. It's just fact. It's just what the facts are. There's a wealth gap between whites and blacks in America. Now, white people leave a lot of generational wealth to their families, so the gap keeps getting wider and wider and wider and wider, right? Now, if every black person in America bought $1 million life insurance policy, now, is that feasible or reasonable? Probably not, but just the math behind it. In a few short years, just the amount of black people who die in America each year, in a few short years, they will double the income of black America. Double the income of black America in just a few years. Meaning all the money we earn, if everybody bought life insurance, and all the people who died each year, all the black people who died each year, had $1 million life insurance policy, in a few years, almost immediately, they would double the income of black America. Double the income. So if you double the income of a group of people, don't those people now have greater economic power? Can't those people then buy more land and buy more properties? Can't those people now invest in economic and justice? Can those people now do lots of different things? Can they support political candidates that will advocate for their rights? Can they support causes that can change the laws? But if you're poor and you're broke and nobody's left you anything, you got nothing to leave to your kids, and you're just worrying about yourself and your survival, the likelihood of you contributing to some guy who would go and change a law is not very high. The likelihood of you paying attention to that is not very high. There was a bill that was in the House that would penalize police brutality, especially with kneeling on people's necks. There was a law a few years ago, I think it was 2015 or maybe 16, something like that, was introduced. The bill never passed. Now, why did the bill not pass? Well, if as a group, people were in a much better financial position because they got generational wealth and they were in a much stronger financial position, they could pay attention to some of those kinds of issues. They could support causes and advocate issues so that those kinds of things could be passed. Those laws could be put into place that would have protected a guy like George Floyd from dying, and anybody else who have died from that type of police brutality, that would have stopped that. So that's the role that generational wealth plays. Is not just for you and your family. It's a society thing. It's why it's a responsibility. It's my responsibility to leave generational wealth to my family. It's not because it's a cool thing to do. It's because they can use that money and that wealth to impact social change. That's part of the reason why, especially if you're a minority in America, you need that, because other groups are already going to be leaving their family a lot of money anyway. So if you don't do it, you're skirting your responsibility, not just to your family and your children, but also to the larger society as a whole. And that's one of the role that generational wealth plays, and why I believe is extremely important to be able to do.
Okay, so let me take it to Africa a bit, right? We don't have life insurance So, what would you advise a typical African person? How can they invest to build generational wealth?
Well, it depends on the country in Africa because there's some countries that have life insurance. Ghana, Nigeria, Ivory Coast, South Africa, especially, is a huge life insurance industry in South Africa. So if we talk about Liberia itself, right? Um, if you have any little bit of money in Liberia, you can look at getting a life insurance policy in one of the other African countries that offer life insurance. That's what could be one start. Otherwise, you're going to have to build it all yourself. You're going to have to look at buying land, buying property, renting out those properties to people. If you're trying to get Liberians who live in America to go back to Liberia, you need to have properties there that those people be willing to live in. You know, people in America are used to certain, I guess you call it luxuries. They're used to a certain lifestyle. So you got to have a nice, comfortable place. So if you can start, even if that's what I was saying on our last live stream, that you don't have to build a house all at once. In Liberia, you can build it little by little. So you can start getting together. You can put people together. You can get together with your family, put some money together, keep working and saving your money until it gets to be a certain amount, then put it together, and then do housing, do things like that. Do stores. Is there like a store that you can open with your family? Look at for what things people need that there's not enough of, right? Housing is a big factor. You know, there's a lot of people who want to find proper housing in Liberia who would want to go back to Liberia if they could, but it's got to be in a better position, right? So if it's just Liberia, you can look at it that way. If it's other countries, you can do the exact same thing. When I lived in Ivory Coast, there was a lot of building going on. Right now in Ghana, lots of building going on.
Oh, goodness.
Um, yeah, one of my friends from Sierra Leone, he used to live in Ivory Coast. We met together in Ivory Coast. We went to school together in Ivory Coast. He went back there and he started a solar company. So now he's putting solar panels in new communities. He's pulling solar panels on government buildings. So look for opportunities like that. You know, he left Liberia and went back to Sierra Leone, and now his solar company is in a few different countries, and he got contracts in a few different countries. So look for things that are opportunities where you can build a business, where you can grow something, where you can buy real estate or buy land and build on it, and then use that to exchange for money with people. Some of the things that last over generations are businesses and real estate. A business can fall apart, but the real estate's there. You can maintain it. So the real estate's still there. So buy land, do things like that, and then the next generation will be able to take over that real estate, those properties that you left, and continue to collect rent from it. And if it's appropriate, maybe some of them might sell some of those properties for a large amount of money, and now to put themselves in a better financial position.
Thank you so much. Let me check. I don't think we have any question. People are just commenting that it's very informative and they like the discussion. They're learning a
Oh,
lot.
good,
Someone
good.
said, she said, should I get my kids a life insurance policy?
Yes. You have to have yours first. Depends on where you live. So if you live in America here, I mean, from a 2 week old baby can have a life insurance policy, and it can be on your policy. So we've got some where our son is on my wife's policy, and then we're adding some other ones where it's just him on his own policy by himself for different purposes, right? So yeah, you can have a policy on your kid. When you have a life insurance policy on your kid, you can have one that's just if the kid passes away, or one where it also builds cash. So it all depends on your financial situation. I've had one of my clients, his kids passed away uh, like a month or so ago, and the kid was just 18 years old. So you know, it's tough, but things do happen to children, and you're not trying to profit when something happens to your child, but there's an emotional impact of that. You know, you don't expect somebody to go to work the next day after the kid passes away. So, you know, that helps to provide income for you to pay for final expenses for your kids, and maybe provide some income to you so you can take some time off from work. because look, it's a tough thing to have a mom go back to work or a dad go back to work right when a kid passes away. So it's just something to keep in mind as why it's important. I think it's, if you're in a position to do it, it's a good thing to do, to have life insurance on your kid, whether it's they're on connected to yours or they have their own separately.
Thank you so much. So guys, the rules to the money game is already set. It's just that nobody is teaching us how to use them to build wealth. And Martin just did that for us today. And we're very, very grateful. Thank you so much, Martin, for being on the show today. I know I reached out to you before, you agreed to come. I reached out again, you agreed to come. And I know you get paid thousands of dollars to do what you're doing for us for free. And I just want to say thank you so much. And thank you to our viewers for watching today. I hope you guys learned a lot. So we've come to the end of the show. Martins, do you have anything else that you would love to say before we call it a day?
Well, I just want to say thank you. Thanks for having me, Eva. I think it's great what you're doing to help people, to educate people by bringing different people on your show and then really giving them thoughtful questions. You know, I could tell you put some time into asking those questions so that your viewers can benefit. So thank you for having me. I'm happy to come back and talk anytime. Doing things like this is something I really like to do because I really like teaching and helping people. So thanks for having me, and thanks to your viewers for watching.
Like you said, it's not easy. I have my partner and friend G. Michael Cassell. So when we put these questions together, we argue about it. Like we want to make sure that the questions we're going to ask will actually benefit the viewers, and there are things that
Yeah.
people can relate to. So I
Yeah.
had no idea what I was getting into when I started this program, but I realized
Yeah.
it's a lot of hard work. And
Yeah.
any topic I'm trying to discuss, I also have to go and do my research to
Yeah.
understand it before I come on the show. So you were right. It's a lot of hard work that goes into it. But I'm glad that, I'm able to help others, build up a better financial life and be more financial literate. And I'm so glad that you could do this for us. And I'm sure they're going to request you back again. So these days
Just
we'll
let me know.
definitely
We'll
have you.
plan it.
Thank you so much, and thank you to our viewers. We'll see you guys in 2 weeks. Take care and stay safe.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.